everyone knows that Artosis loves MVP. Explain why. What was that MVP so good at?
Yeah, so MVP was probably the actual strongest, like during the first switch from StarCraft 1 players to StarCraft 2, he was probably the actual strongest player that switched over. He wasn't super famous in StarCraft 1. He was coming up as a Terran. And the thing is, most of the people that switched into StarCraft 2 right at the beginning were the weaker players on the Kespa teams because they saw that this was an opportunity. So MVP was probably the strongest guy that switched over at that time. But he just kind of outdid everyone. And in fact, like, okay, so StarCraft 2 came out, in 2010?
Yes.
Only about 2 years ago did his name exit the discussion of GOAT in StarCraft 2. So that's a pretty fucking insane run. That's like, it just... Man, it was literally until about 2 years ago, it was like, okay, MVP Maru Rogue Serral, who is it? And nowadays, you can't really say MVP anymore because it's like everyone just keeps playing and keeps winning championships. And it's like, okay, he's not really keeping up because he's not there. But yeah, he was just so legendary. He like figured out so much for Terran, outplayed everyone, won so many championships, so many tournaments like right in a row. And like you mentioned about his wrists, like his wrists gave out. And he switched his style completely from the very micro and multitasking, required like bionic play using a lot of like Marine, Marauder, Medevac. He switched into playing mech all the time because it's slower and it didn't hurt his wrists as much. And he was still able to win. And so that's like, are you kidding me? He literally switched from like the thing he was best at and was winning for him, started winning with another style because his wrists hurt. And then eventually he just had to give up because he was in pain. It's too bad because, I mean, if he never got those wrist issues, he might actually still be like the GOAT.
People might know this. You guys, you and Perks, not only on the broadcast, were hilarious and like always bantering each other, and they used to purposely put you on the analyst desk together for that reason. But also, like, even on Twitter, you were like, this is before G2 Brand even did this. You were the original shit talkers. You were always DMing back, like fucking doing the replies and trying to say, you're going to lose this game, I'm going to lose this game. How was it at all weird when you joined up as teammates? Wasn't it sort of like, hey, I want to beat you, I'll fuck you, or whatever? How did you get together?
I think we were like, we would banter each other, but we didn't have like hard feelings behind it. So we both respect each other as players, right? And I think the banter already started back in 2000, I think it was 16, when I met Perks in a bar, and he was like this very cocky kid. And I don't remember what the conversation was about, and I don't remember where we met and why did we even talk to each other, but like I just remember that he was very, very cocky. That's all I remember, this smack mid laner's face. So this is where the banter kind of started, and they just kept going, right?
When I ask you about the Season 8 Worlds and that match against RNG, it's funny because the rest of the career when it became the super team was like they always lose to the LPL team. But the joke here is that actual LPL team was themselves trying to be like the greatest team ever. They'd won MSI, they won the LPL splits. They were supposed to win this Worlds, and you guys obviously upset them in the quarters, right? In that match, not only did they have Uzi Eyes, people forget Carson was their jungler. He's another long-term jungler who's had a lot of success. Did that series change something for you to win like a best of 5 against a top team? He's in theory the number 1 team in the world. Did it change your career?
I'm not sure, right? I mean, maybe it did, but it didn't. I mean, back then I was just very happy that we made it, that we won in Busan, right? That was my second Korean boot camp and tournament in Korea as well, and our first tournament in Korea, and I was just very happy to like win. I didn't really care about who we play because I didn't watch like as much RNG back then, so I didn't understand, if that makes sense, how strong they can be. So then I just kind of played the game, right? And we won, and I was very, very happy. I remember I was like really high on sugar and coffee. I was like drinking so much coffee and eating like cakes before that series. But yeah, I was very, very happy that we won. And did it change my life? I mean, it was the moment where like I was just like proud to like be a pro player, to like be the Western hope, right? Because we were like, oh, they are gonna for sure lose, and then we saw us winning, and then Fnatic won as well, and then Fnatic was meeting Cloud9 in semifinals, so they had like the freest final ever, and then we were there as well, playing against IG, and IG already lost in group stage, I think, one time to Fnatic, so people actually expected us, okay, they beat RNG, the best team from China, so now surely they will beat IG, and we have like Europe against Europe in the final, and finally like the West can rise. And then, everyone just got 3-0.
almost every 1.6 Pro I know when the game first came out was like, even if they were the ones playing it, were like behind the scenes like, this game fucking sucks. Like, it's so bad. Especially because, you know, like no one felt like they could be as good as they were in 1.6. Even the players who early on were very good, they were sort of like, you can't do the same things, you know, it's tough to dominate individually, you know. What did you actually think of CSGO in the first few months?
Yeah, I think more of the way I would hate it is that I wasn't so good in CSGO that I was in 1.6, and that makes you just angry and sad for all the hours you spent into 1.6 to become where you are now, and just literally just reset the button, right? So I think I didn't like the game in the beginning at all, and that was one of the reasons why I thought to myself, do I really want to keep on going, or just close down my career now and just focus on my studies? But I still saw opportunity to play on a little while I had my studies while I could, and I'm just glad I did, because actually 1 week before I got the offer from TSM guys, I actually said to myself, it's time to stop now, since I'm since I'm about to write my master thesis, and just focus 6 months of that and then go out and work. So I had like 2 points of my career where I wanted to stop, so I just luckily kept on playing.
Okay, but aside from those ones, okay, no one else was in the backstage area when you lost these matches, you know, the big semis or whatever. So were the others, did any of them just take it well, like, oh, okay, like that sucks or whatever? Were they the same as you in that sense? Were some of them more broken up by these losses?
So the way I've always handling losses in my life, like where I really think I'm not satisfied with myself, is often I need some time alone. And I also need the area after tournament. I need time alone if we're losing. Even if we are going far into tournament, I need time alone just to rethink and just to let the anger get out of me and nobody sees me. And then when everything's out of my system, then I'm able to talk about mistakes and stuff like that. So I think less of different ways of handling. Dupree was often a guy who said, "What are we doing wrong?" Like wants to talk about the problem right after the game, where I'm not able to do that since I need really time and watch the demos and have an idea of what went wrong, because you can never really think in the heat of the moment, what are we doing wrong? You need to actually see it with your own eyes and figure out how you're able to think in those specific situations, why we're not able to win a 3-3, we have the upper hand, and a guy is not playing on time, or a guy is actually just missing his aim, or he's playing bad because he's nervous. So I think there's a lot of things you have to take in consideration when you look at a loss. The only thing where in my whole career in CSGO have had a big question mark is the NIP loss in Cluj Napoca. Yes. To this day, today, I don't understand. But one thing I understand is that Freiburg had never had a so good best of 3 like he had against us.
For sure.
And this is where I say this is the X factor, right? That somehow he shows up. Forrest has minus stats and Freiburg has plus 30 in 2 maps or something like that. That was ridiculous.
How did you do against Samsung White? What were they like in scrims?
So before we scrimmed them, we heard they were like really good. They were way better than Blue and stuff. I think that was after we scrimmed Blue for a bit. And then in the first game, there was this Korean spectator. You remember the Reddit thread with like, oh, Pugnatio's a real deal, all that kind of stuff?
Sure.
Yeah, that was after the first game against Samsung White where we completely stomped them. Like I remember we played Kha'Zix jungle, Fizz mid. I think we played Aurelia top and we just completely crapped on them all over the map. And then we're like, holy shit, these guys are not even that good. And then we lost 17 games in a row. We're like, holy shit, all right, they're pretty good. So that's basically that episode with Samsung White. I think we went, I don't know, 3-23 or 4-23, something like that was our score. They were pretty good.
Finally, like after 3 weeks of staying at Richard's place, they fly me to, they get me a train ticket to Germany, and then like I go to Germany to Cologne, and then I go to another train station. I go up to wherever the fuck north of Hamburg. It's like a farm town, just like in the north of Germany somewhere, a complete rural area. And I'm staying with the MTW manager at the time, his wife, and their 2 toddlers. I'm staying in their house in rural bumfuck nowhere Germany. I don't speak a word of German at the time. And even if I did, to go out, there's like no fast food, there's no convenience stores, there's nothing. We're in a farm town. So I'm staying inside the entire time, just playing and grinding CS. And that's when I was hitting my peak again. But at the time, like, Hadji, like I got picked up, and Hadji's like, he doesn't want to play with Weber. There's like inner team turmoil there, so they cut Weber, and then we're trying to like always find a new fifth. So Hadjou's like putting out all of these big names. And he's like, what about Face? What about Mixaki? What about this guy? What about that guy? And we're trying out all these players, and they all fucking suck. They're all coming from 1.6, and the only reason why they are playing CSGO at the time is for the paycheck. Yeah. They're not putting in any time. They're asking for like double my salary, and I'm playing like 12 hours a day. They're asking for like double my salary. They're not putting any time in. They're just scrimming. They're not learning anything, and they're getting surprised by rushes all the time. They're not learning like CSGO mechanics are completely different from the 1.6 ones. And at the time, like you do like this double bunny hop thing with an op. I don't know how to explain it, but if you remember like early CSGO, if you're about to peek out and then you crouch and then you uncrouch or something, like it like hops you or something like that. It was something weird. And I'm trying to like show this. I'm doing it with Mixaki for like an hour one time. He's not even on the team. And I'm trying to show him how to do this. And then like with Face, like he just always has a nade out and he's just getting bum rushed. And I'm saying like we can't just go and get these guys that have big 1.6 names because they don't care. They're not going to put any time in, and they're not going to get better. Like we should go after people that have potential to get better, that are good now but have potential to get better because they don't have like massive egos and want to play because they enjoy playing and not because of the paycheck. I guess heading into where we went to ESL 1 Cologne and Gfinity. It was after Gfinity, before ESL 1 Cologne. We were having like a team discussion, and then we wanted to switch back to me being the in-game leader. And then when we got to the major, when we were discussing like what maps to veto, Days wanted to like do a coin flip on Cobblestone against Fnatic. So we played them on Cobblestone, but we didn't have any practice on it. I wasn't comfortable with the map, and I didn't want to do that play. That was his decision to play them on that map because he said it would be too hard to beat them on other maps, especially like a Mirage. Like we'd lose to them 100% on Mirage, but on Cobble we have like a 50% chance. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. But but that's how we did the veto. So we got them on Cobble, and we lost to them on this. And then we played that team. We beat them on Cobble. Again, you have that 33% chance it's going to, you do ban. There's 3 maps left, and it's a random pick. So we got Cobble twice in a row. We play against VP on Cash, but we hadn't played Cash at all in the boot camp because we were so good on Cash previously, and we played VP on Cash at ESC Atlanta and beat them like 16-6 or something. So like, we didn't play Cash at all during the boot camp. We had a lot of wasted time at the boot camp. Like that's something that pissed me off a lot because we were scheduling. Before we went to the boot camp, I said, look, we can either play 3 days and play it really hard, or we play all the days, but we go not as hard because we're going to burn ourselves out and we're going to waste a lot of time. And they started booking scrims, like 8 scrims, like 8 hours of scrims every day. Like we didn't have time to go over demos. We didn't have time to do this. We didn't have time to do that. And it was just so bad. So at this like second last day of our boot camp, like we're like, yeah, like we're not allocating our time properly, and we want to switch in-game leaders to me.
Do you remember when you were at this Season 4 Worlds, and you heard this news that Svenskeren was getting suspended for half the games? Because obviously his team, SK, was in your group, and getting suspended sort of did give you a free win immediately in the group, and you were famously in the group with no Koreans. So in a competitive sense, it was good for you. But do you remember hearing this news that he was actually in, like, I mean, it's pretty deep shit, actually.
Yeah, he is a friend of mine, so we talked about it pretty soon after it happened, and it was obvious that I had been in NA for a while, so I kind of had a better understanding of, because in Europe or in the US, you just say the stupidest stuff and people don't really take offense and you don't really learn what's right and wrong. But as soon as I came to NA, anytime I said something inappropriate, people would let me know, my teammates would let me know and tell me this is not appropriate here. This is not something you can say in America. People don't take as fondly to those, jokes or whatever you want to call it. So I was a bit more cultured, I guess, at that time. But he didn't understand why what he did was wrong because he just hadn't had people tell him what was right and wrong. So I felt really sorry for him because he's not an evil person. Like I said, he's just a keyboard warrior that didn't understand what he could do and what he wasn't supposed to do or say.
What was actually winning like? Like, for example, okay, when people are training, it's often a thing people do, like they imagine themselves winning and what would it be like, and that's the goal. When you actually get there, is the goal as good as people hype it up to be?
That time, yeah, I would say that's definitely the sweetest victory I've had. Every split, every season I've won since then has just not compared, because it was my first time. There was no such thing as us being the best team or being the favorites. It was I even felt like after we won that it was likely 3-9 was the better team, but we performed better on that day or just on one of those games, and we were clutch. So it was a pretty ridiculous feeling. Yeah, it's one of my very dear moments, I would say.
I've been pleasantly surprised during the time I've had my Patreon and my Patreon community, the Skrilluminati, by both the financial support they've provided and the moral support. And so this video was kindly supported and made possible by Starlust, Theo Buenzli, Ahmed Hadjou, Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Toucan, Jensen Goh, Animosity, Tobias Bernasconi, Bot Pounder 420, Yerka 86, Tosh, and as always, you know it, a special thanks goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Would you like to ask a question in one of those AMAs where I tend to go pretty in depth? Sometimes they even spin out into their own videos. Do you want teasers to find out who the upcoming guests are for the myriad of interviews that I do across esports? Maybe you want to suggest a topic or a guest? We have a channel on my Discord where you can do that if you're at the right tier. And of course, you could potentially take part in one of those lengthy esports discussions with me about whatever is on your mind in the scene. Well, if any of those perks sound tantalizing, put your money where your mouth is and join the Skrilluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.